And thank you, Richard. And I will try to keep the 45 minutes, but I know how to talk really quickly. And if I'm going too quickly, just stop me, or we can talk on a break. Okay, I can tell you right now, I thought this was going to be 60 minutes, and I looked on the agenda a while ago, and it was 60. So we're going to do it in 45, and we are going to move through some slides that I probably won't have time to talk about. But I've uploaded to the proceedings all slides, all of them, so you guys can look at all of them, and I'm going to have to skip some if you guys don't mind. How many people were at Mark Nelson's excellent RACF update session? Okay, so I just want to say I have a couple of items for him that were from him, but he went into a lot more depth about how to use it. Now, to talk about ZOS 2.3, which was a release that was, I don't know, 2-3 years in development, and try to stick it into 45 minutes, you're not going to get a whole lot of meat on any one topic. Okay? But the idea is in this presentation is to give you a flavor of what is in the release, and then you can decide what more things you want to do further investigation into. And also I'll give you my own personal opinion about some of the functions that I'm really excited about as well. Okay, so let's just get moving. My name is Marna Walle, and I work in ZOS development in Poughkeepsie, New York. My email is on here if you have any questions at all about this or any of the other sessions I'm going to give here at GSE. I'd like to have email from you. You can give me some suggestions if you like. Also, welcome to the people that are watching it on videotape afterwards. It'd be nice if you were here, and we would have to go get more chairs. That would be even better. So let's just get moving. So what I want to talk about, first of all, is a lot of the aspects about the new functions that we have in ZOS 2.3, and I want to kick it off at the top, talking about hardware support. And the reason why I like to talk about hardware first is, of course, because the Z14's out, but this is a very integrated release with the ZOS 2.3 functions really reaching down into the hardware to surface a lot of the facilities in the hardware so that we can do a lot of great things through the middleware and then even up to the applications as well. So one of our largest jobs in Poughkeepsie with ZOS 2.3 is to make sure that everything that's in the hardware we can exploit up in the operating system. So we'll go through that, and then we'll go through a lot of the other areas of the release. So let's start with hardware. First of all, 2.3, we had a level set where we will only IPL 2.3 on an EC12, BC12 or higher. And if you notice, it's a 2-release jump up here, okay? So if you have an EC12, BC12 and you want to IPL 2.3, you're okay. But if you have a 196 or 114 or a Z10, people ask me this all the time, and I get about 1 email a week. What happens if I try to put 2.3 on a 196? You say that it is actually supported on an EC12, BC12, but what will happen? Let me tell you what will happen. It will wait state. I believe it's a 7-Baker wait state. I think it's reason code 20 if you look it up. It's a new message or a new type, and it will say machine facility not available. What does that mean? We're trying to use a machine facility instruction that is not on that machine, and therefore we will wait state. So is this a requirement? Absolutely, it's a requirement. If you don't believe me, go and try it. I've done it myself. So ZOS 2.3 on an EC12, BC12 or higher, that is firm. That's not just a support thing. That is the way it is. Okay, so let's keep moving on to some more hardware items that we have here. First of all, this is the first time, and I'm a migration person. I've been dealing a lot with ZOS installation and migration topics. This is the very first time where we are actually having a memory requirement for a ZOS operating system. We haven't ever had one before. People ask, and we really never had a good answer and a really specific answer to give everyone. The answer is, well, how much do you use now? Well, how much do you page? Well, now we have a minimum requirement. Now, the minimum requirement is coming into effect when you only meet 2 situations. One of them is you have to be running ZOS 2.3, so it's a 2.3 enhancement. And also, it will only come in when you're IPLing that 2.3 system on a Z14. When both of those conditions are true, then you have this new minimum memory requirement of 8 gigabytes. Okay, but we're nice about this one, right? If you don't have 8 gigabytes on a Z14 and you go to IPL, we will give you a WTOR, and it'll say, you know, you don't have 8 gigabytes here. Your system availability could be impacted. Do you want to continue? And if you want to say continue, you are allowed to continue with that IPL, and you have accepted any problems by not having the required minimum of 8 gigabytes. Okay, so this one is a strong requirement, I would say, because I wouldn't continue on if I didn't have 8 gigabytes. But the reason why we're doing it on the hardware boundary as well is so that when you purchase your Z14, you can plan for this and have at least 8 gigabytes on every single LPAR. Sandbox, development, test, production, DR, everything. Okay, so plan for this one, and it requires a little bit of extra time. If you happen to be running as a VM guest, ZOS as a VM guest, or you're running on that thing called the ZPDT, the minimum memory requirement is only 2 gigabytes. All right, next thing. It's officially called Instruction Execution Protection. I like to call it non-executable memory. What this means is I'm allowed to obtain storage, and on that storage obtained, the IAR v64, I can say this will not be memory that is executed. And therefore, if somebody would try to execute an instruction in that memory, they would receive a program check. This is good. This is a security enhancement so that nobody can try to execute in the certain areas of memory that have been obtained. Okay, so that's called Instruction Execution Protection. Officially, I happen to think of it as non-executable memory. Okay. Next one down, we have, as you've heard today, maybe from, or maybe even at some of the other sessions already, is that we have a push towards pervasive encryption with ZOS 2.3 and especially on the Z14. And in this area, we have 2 large line items for ZOS 2.3. The first one is coupling facility encryption. And what that is the ability for XCF on the ZOS LPAR to encrypt certain types of structures, and you decide which structures you want. It is cache and list structures. It is not lock structures. So XCF can encrypt those structures inside of MVS, send it over the link already encrypted, so it will be in transit encrypted, and then it will be stored on the CF encrypted already. And then when it needs the information back, it'll pull it back over the link, back again encrypted, and then it will decrypt it on the MVS system itself. So XCF is really doing all the work, and it's doing it on ZOS. Okay, so in a nutshell, that's what CF encryption is. It requires that the sysplex is totally at ZOS 2.3. You can run it in a mixed sysplex, but I would not do that on a production system. Just do that to maybe test it out. However, it's strongly recommended that you be at ZOS 2.3 everywhere in order to start in production using CF encryption. The other big item is data set encryption, but the name that I prefer for it is access method encryption, because that's a little bit more specific for ZOS system programmers exactly what kind of encryption this is. So what we are doing with access method encryption is that any BSAM, QSAM, or VSAM data can be encrypted, and you can control that. Okay, at my migration session, I'll tell you very strongly about how to protect from this encryption until you are ready to do it, because we don't want you to accidentally encrypt something and not be able to unencrypt it. That would be a very big problem. So there's migration actions associated with this, and there are a lot of exploitation considerations and planning that you need to do for this as well. So like I said, BSAM, QSAM, VSAM data is going to be eligible to be encrypted if you'd like it to be. It needs to be extended format and SMS managed. However, ZFS, being the nice guys that they are, they have relaxed that SMS and also the extended format requirements. So all of your ZFS file systems can be encrypted if you so desire. Okay. This was rolled back to ZOS 2.2 with this APAR, and there is toleration, only toleration, on ZOS 2.1 with this other APAR that you can see here. This is really cool stuff. So these are the 2 encryption ways that we have today. Question?
Does this clash with the ZEDC compression at all?
Does access method encryption conflict with the compression code? No, not for this right here in DFSMS, and no, also not in ZFS, because ZFS can also do compression now, and these are 2 separate things. Compression in ZFS is one thing, encryption in ZFS is another thing. However, how they're implemented looks a lot alike. How you do both of those things is done through the same facilities and utilities. Okay, good question. All right, so we'll move on from there. We have a true random number generator support within the hardware, and we have also surfaced that up through the operating system so that other people above the operating system can use the true random number generator, and you'll see later on Java is an exploiter of that as well. We have more processor encryption changes. So we have new SHA-3 hashing algorithms, KIMD and KLMD. I had to look those up because I didn't know what they were. KLMD is Compute Intermediate Message Digest, and KLMD is Compute Last Message Digest. Okay, that was kind of interesting. We also have enhancements to hyperdispatch with memory affinity so that we can try to allocate the memory closer to those affinity nodes than before. So this is an add-on enhancement to hyperdispatch. On the Z14, we don't have a flash express anymore. What we have is called virtual flash memory. That will save you at least 2 PCIe I/O drawer slots. And also you can do concurrent add. ZOS, as a matter of fact, is still going to call it SCM. Okay, so it's different in the hardware, but to the operating system it still looks the same. It's still SCM. DS8880 has hyperlink support that will help you to lower your latencies. And DS8877.5, we have transparent cloud tiering with DFSMS HSM, and that has been rolled back to ZOS 2.1. There is a web deliverable, of course, to go out with the hardware for the Z14. I tend to speak about it in FMID terms because crypto has had so many web deliverables. The only way I can keep track of them is by the FMID. It's called HCR77 Charlie 1. It is a web deliverable. It is not in ZOS 2.3. You have to go and retrieve and receive, apply, accept it individually, and you can see a lot of the enhancements that we have here. If you are running a Z14 and you want the latest and greatest crypto, go get this web deliverable, HCR77 Charlie 1. Receive, apply, accept it yourself, and you'll have the highest crypto. All right, so now let's move to a release overview. Before I get into each one of the line items that I'll be able to talk about today in 45 minutes, I wanted to talk to you guys about a hill. Hills. You guys know what a hill are, right? Everybody knows what a hill is. I don't know if you do, but a couple, but maybe not everybody. Okay, because we have converted into Agile programming methods, one of the things in Agile terminology is the idea of a hill. And a hill is a major theme or a goal of the release. And these are the big things that we wanted the release associated with. So when we talk about hills, we talk about what's the theme of this release, or what's the objective for this release. What are we really going out after for this ZOS release? And we call those hills. So you're going to hear people talk about hills, and that's my definition of what a hill is. So what we have are 3 hills for ZOS 2.3, and you'll see that the subsequent enhancements that we have fall under these hills. On these little pieces, you have subhills. Subhills can be the individual functions that are in this movement towards the hill. So the first one is cloud enablement for ZOS. So you'll see a lot of things that we're doing for the functions that enable cloud. Also security, and you can see I just described to you about CF encryption and about access method encryption and ZFS encryption. These are all following under the hill of security, because we take security, that was a lot of the push on what are the functions that we delivered in ZOS 2.3 for. So we have cloud and security. And then the last one, we've been working on this one for a while, simplification. So you'll see a lot of things easier in the release to hopefully help everybody out, not just the people that are experienced with ZOS, but those that are still learning it as well. And also what you have seen, if you've heard us talk about simplification, we're also talking about ZOSMF, okay? And we've got a lot of ZOSMF enhancements in 2.3, and I'll just give you a little peek into the migration session. I think the worst migration action we have in 2.3 is related to ZOSMF, so heads up on that one. All right, now for individual more areas underneath those hills that we have for the content. So we have usability, scalability, availability, systems management, network security, and application development. I don't think I'm probably going to be able to get much to these 3 here because of the time limit of this presentation, but if maybe we can get to 1 or 2 of those slides and see if I can pick out the best ones on there for you. So usability, scalability, availability, and systems management, those are big areas that we have in 2.3 underneath the hills: cloud, security, and simplification. So let's get into usabilities and skills. What's the answer there? ZOSMF. Not the only answer, but it is an answer for usability and skills. So what we have in 2.3 is something that I really like a lot. I'm not a person that remembers system commands very well, and when I look at responses, I tend to use a piece of paper to draw what I've got back. And this is a lot better than that. So here we have in Osmf, we have a new plugin. What is a plugin? A plugin is an application that you define into the parm member of Osmf, and then with the correct security, I'm allowed to use it from my choice panel over here. Who here today has already brought up Osmf and logged onto it? All right, well, we're going to fix that in 2.3 because we're going to start it for you in 2.3, which is the biggest migration action we have. So hopefully everybody on 2.3 is going to have it. And if you go into your parm member, if you don't see it, it's because you didn't add it here. It's called Sysplex Management. Once you add it here in your parm member, stop and restart the server or just re-IPL. You'll have that, and once you have the proper authority to do it, you can see it. What does it do? It gives you view access to what your Sysplex looks like. It's really nice. I really like this one a lot because for me, this is visually how I usually see the Sysplex. So I can just view things, and this is just the first phase of it, but eventually I'm going to tell you that we want to get into being able to change the configuration of the Sysplex eventually. So first shot is just doing a view of it, which I think is frankly a lot, which is good. So I can see here, I know you guys can't see it, I have individual Sysplexes. I have also the ability to look within a coupling facility at the structure level here. Also, I can go down and look at link technology. I can color code this. I can view lots of things. It's just wonderful. It's great to go and play around with this once you have it up and running. Okay. The second one, that's a big function that's coming in Osmf, is consoles. Now, I've been playing around a lot with this, and I have some strong opinions about it, only because I think I've misstepped about everything that you could do wrong in order to try to get this the way I wanted it to look. I finally have got it up and running, and I think it's in the way that I like it on my system. I had to do a lot of changes to get it that way. What you have is you use an EMCS console, and you can start looking at messages on systems. And over time, you can see it start to ticker tape out here. And I can drill down on a particular system, and I can even drill down on a particular time frame, get color-coded messages, counts on how many messages I had, which ones were error message, and then it can color-code them here. I can actually go on a command line and issue a command right here. All done with EMCS. The problems, not the problems, but the difficulties I had is making sure that I had my EMCS defined correctly. Because if I just took the defaults, which is what I originally did, it's not at all what I wanted, and it took me quite a while to figure out how I had to redefine an EMCS in order to get this the way I wanted it. And also to start and stop it, it's not, in my view, all that intuitive because you have to go down to the actions pull down, which I didn't see that immediately, and I thought that it was going to be easy enough without having to read too much book, but I was mistaken. So anyway, this is fun to do. It's good to play with. But just be aware that if you just take defaults, you might not see much of anything. In fact, this will probably not show you much of anything, which is what I wanted to change. All right. So I told you that we have a massively large migration action in 2.3. It's called Osmf Auto Start. We are going to start the angel and the server at IPL on every single IPL unless you do something about it. Now, my advice is to let it start in one place in the Sysplex, but probably not start in any of the other ones because you can only have one image per Sysplex. The same rules as it was before, but what we're going to do is we're going to automatically start it for you. All right, so this can be tricky. I'm going to spend a lot of time on this and migrating in part 1 this afternoon, trying to explain what you're going to want to do for this. Also, we have broken out a new base element called ZOS Liberty Embedded. This used to be Liberty that we included within Osmf and the operating system, the FMID itself. Now we're taking it out, putting it in a separate FMID, and it's just in the base. And it was really more of a packaging thing. You guys are probably not going to care about it, but what we're trying to do is stop proliferating the amount of instances in Liberty where everybody is embedding Liberty, and then the next thing you know, you got 30 or 40 copies of Liberty. If we get it in the base, we get it separated out into a packaging method like this, like we've done, then other people can start to use in the base as they start having 2.3 as their minimum operating system level. We have the ability to do more dynamic configurations. I can set dynamically the header and the footer up on the logon panel of ZOSMF. I can even handle a teeny tiny little picture there, which is kind of cool. Also with cloud provisioning middleware, I can provision an MQ, DB2, KIX, IMS, and WebSphere instance dynamically through ZOSMF. And so I can actually deploy new instances of those in minutes instead of days or weeks. Very nice, and that's part of our Cloud Hill. Incident log is one of the oldest plugins that we've had in ZOSMF, and it used to, when you had an SVC, we would capture information related to that SVC dump, and then you would be able to package that and send it to the software vendor for debug. And now you can actually create an incident without having an SVC log, SVC dump, so you can do it yourself. Software management is one of our key areas. If you heard today the keynote session, where they were talking about an install strategy where many vendors have come together, the key way that we're going to be installing products in the future is with ZOSMF, and it's right in software management. So you guys that weren't using ZOSMF, if you want to install products in the future, you're going to be using software management. And I don't want you to have to play catch up and try to get ZOSMF up. So it's really important that on 2.3 you get ZOSMF up and running. We also have a user capability in ZOSMF saying who's on ZOSMF and what are they using, which is really nice. I can see what popular things people are using within ZOSMF since the last time I started the server. Workflow engine is a key part of the installation strategy. The workflow portion is a series of steps that I define in XML to do something, configure something, migrate something. I have some kind of goal, and it's broken to a series of steps. They're all defined in the workflow engine. What we want to do is after you've installed a product with software management, we want to be able to launch directly into the workflow to allow you to now migrate or use that new function. Okay, so these pieces of ZOSMF are all starting to come together in a pretty nice way, hopefully, so it's really key you get it up and running. We finally have the ZOSMF SDSF external application that has caught up with the ISPF panels, and you can see a lot of that information in ZOSMF, which is nice. And I love this one. This is great. I've been waiting for this for a long time. I don't like having to put on user mods every time I migrate to a new release. And we had a RACF user mod so that we could define the data set name and the range tables. Again, if you heard this morning, Mark Nelson said that is more complicated. It's written in assembler. Why not just put it in a ParmLib member? Therefore, we have a brand new ParmLib member, IOR PRM. It's pointed to an IASys by RACF equals. It's only in ZOS 2.3, and I love this. And this was the ability to get rid of a user mod in 2.3, which I really love. And if you can see that we're moving along this into ZOS 2.2, we had the ability to get rid of IEF USI with the SMF lim. Anybody using that? Love it. I love getting rid of user mods and getting them in ParmLib. And here's the second one we've had in 2 releases now. And if you have more ideas for us to get rid of user mods, please let us know. There actually is a more obscure user mod that we have also gotten rid of in 2.3, but I'm not sure that anybody here might have used it. So for scalability, we are moving forward on our RMode 64 roadmap, and we have enough support in Content Supervisor in Loader and also within the binder in order to support Java JIT. That was our next goal on the roadmap for RMode 64. SMC Direct was rolled back into ZOS 2.1 with APARs, incorporated into ZOS 2.3. This has some very important performance improvements, suggestions here that you might have seen. Not to say that your system would have these numbers, but these are performance numbers that we have seen on our systems. We have the ability to have larger log stream staging data sets, bigger than 4 gigabytes. And this is, we're trying to keep ahead of the data rates that you have for logging. We have more SMF record types. We ran out of SMF record types, and so in a compatible way, we now have 2,048 record types. Now with this additional extended format SMF records, we are going to do reservation of particular SMF records. So 0 to 127, and then 1152 to 2047. Those are going to be for IBM's usage. And then 128 to 1152 is everybody else's. Okay, so we've got a whole lot more SMF record types. For WLM, we have the ability to specify performance goals at a much lower level of granularity, as low as 1 millisecond. We can separate workloads that contain specialty engines versus those that do not contain specialty engines. You can think about a lot of the new workloads that are coming to the release. I'm thinking of Spark, where we want to put those only on a specialty engine, and also we want to limit the amount of real storage that some of that workload can run in, because think about it, some of this real workload would be very excited to get at some of that 8 gigabytes that we have on the LPAR, but you might have some other things that might be running to run on that system as well. So I can in WLM separate that off and separate it into specialty engines and real storage, and also specify absolute MSU capping. SMF real-time. What SMF real-time is the ability that you can write a program. We will give you the APIs so that you can get at SMF data at the same time it's being put into the SMF buffer. So you will know right away, as soon as we do, what the data is coming into SMF, and with that program that you write, you will be able to react in real time to an event that has happened on the system. Like, let's say that you have in your program that you want to detect a security violation in real time. You'll be able to write that program and get that information back from SMF so that you can do something immediately when it happens. This is totally compatible with SMF datasets and also SMF log streams, because you're getting it way before it even goes there. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether you're using man datasets or log streams, it's fine. It's SMF real time. There's a sample program also that we'll give you if you wanted to use that. We have high frequency throughput statistics, HFTS. This has been rolled back all the way to 2.1. This is going to be SMF 98 record with a very short interval length, so that you can look within the SMF record and find some events that might have been very short-lived, but now with HFTS you can see better information about them. Open dataset constraint relief. We've been moving forward with this a little bit more in a lot of the prior releases, and we continue to do this in ZOS 2.3. This is to help out our buddies in DB2. So the intention now is that we can have 400,000 open datasets per address space. That's a lot. Okay, so we're moving with this, allowing having more open datasets per address space. VSAM RLS upgrade locking and constraint relief. You may recall that in ZOS 2.2 we had better granularity on VSAM RLS, that we weren't getting the lock at the dataset level. We were getting it at the, I believe it was at the control area level, in order to make the dataset perform better and be better available. But for alternate indexes, we were still single-threaded in ZOS 2.2. So now in 2.3, we will have concurrent update requests being available for alternate indexes. DF sort is going to have performance improvements, so that we will reduce the amount of CPU when DF sort is going to generate code in certain instances. And also exit 15 and 35 can handle blocks of records now to be faster. NFS has a larger parameter size for the read size and the write size. It can now move up from 1 kilobyte to 64 kilobytes. We've got some ZFS cache performance improvements as well. Very small item here, but a lot of work to do, and an excellent item is that ZFS can now use the ZEDC. So if you guys have been using ZEDC since 2.1, or you've been thinking about using ZEDC, here's another exploiter of ZEDC, and that I can compress an entire ZFS file system. ZFS file system and aggregates, totally the same thing. People call them both. They're exactly the same. So I can compress an entire aggregate now with ZEDC. Okay? And the utilities I'm going to use to do that, ZFS admin or the IOE utility from a batch job, those are the methods that I would also use in order to drive down encryption in it as well. Okay. In the area of availability, I've liked this one. It's a little grab bag of nice JES2 enhancements that you'll see. The idea here is to make JES2 more resilient. And so they have done several, maybe smaller, but I don't necessarily think they're small, but they've done several aspects in order to make JES2 more resilient. First of all, it's dealing with limited resources. So the idea here is that limited resources would be spool space or control blocks in the checkpoint, and what the intention is that I'm going to be better able to tell you when the resources are running low and also do something about it as well. So one thing I really like is something that's called privileged space, and it's in a new emergency subsystem. Well, what is that? The system now automatically will allocate a small percentage of these resources, these limited resources that you might have. Do you get to control how much that percentage is? No, you do not. GES2 will decide how much of the resources they want to reserve. However, you do have the choice on whether you have this reservation or not. And when you are all 2-3 everywhere within the MOS, then you will automatically have the reservation of these small resources. To ability is that they can, under an emergency subsystem, that certain jobs or started tasks or user IDs can actually, you can submit a job, you can start a started task, you could log on with one of these users in order to try to fix a situation on the system. Because with this small amount of reserved space in this privileged space and running it under an emergency subsystem, the hopes is that you can do what you need to do in order to clear up the resource problem. Okay, now a little story about this. I know I don't have a whole lot of time, but I did want to mention that we had a customer. It was a large financial customer, and he lead system programmer, and he was having some problems in GES2, was running out of resources, and his system programmer staff said, okay, we got an IPL. He said, no, wait. We got that thing in 2.3. We got that privileged space in that emergency subsystem. Let's give it a try in order to save an IPL. And that's exactly what he did. He logged on, canceled some things that were eating up resources, and next thing you know, the system is fine again. So this is a really good set of functions that we have within GES2, and they do work well. And remember, it is on by default unless you guys force it off. Okay, so I think it's good, and I think you're going to want to leave it on. We also can do a static analysis of your NITDEC settings in light of your current usage. So you can submit a job, or you can issue a command to tell you what you're running today versus what you had specified a long time ago. Also, GES2 can write SMF84 records now so that you can look historically at what was going on in GES2. All right, SSL can auto-detect hardware, can detect whether the crypto card is there, or if the crypto card is unavailable, it can detect when it comes back. This is an excellent function. I have played around with this a lot. We have an online utility where we can migrate while the HFS is still mounted and in use from an HFS to a ZFS. The name of that utility is bpxw-mig-f. Because a lot of people, we're trying to stabilize HFS, and we're also trying to get rid of it now. This is no new news. We're going to get rid of HFS in the release after 2.3. And in order to do that, people have said, I cannot move this file system from an HFS to ZFS because it has to have continuous availability. What are we going to do about it? Well, this is what we're going to do about it. We give you an online migration utility where you can, while that thing is mounted and actively being used, migrate it from an HFS to a ZFS. That function is only in 2.3. That's it. It doesn't go back. It's only in 2.3. And this will be the last thing we need in order to get everybody migrated over to an HFS. Okay, this question?
ZFS, you said migrated to HFS.
Oh, sorry, did I say HFS? Oh my gosh. No, I didn't mean to say that, sorry. And that's on tape, yeah, sorry. From HFS to ZFS, this migration utility can only be used to go this way. You can't do HFS to HFS or ZFS to ZFS or ZFS to HFS. Only from HFS to ZFS. Okay, it's a cool thing. I've played around with this one a lot. It's really neat. All right, let me keep moving along here. Runtime diagnostics. I don't know if anybody is using runtime diagnostics. I sure hope you are, because in 2.3 it's going to start automatically for you. But what we have in runtime diagnostics is more deadlock detection for you, which is really nice. Online salvage of ZFS. Hopefully you guys have never had to do a salvage of a ZFS, but one of the things that we used to have to do is take it offline, and that may not have been what you want. So what we have the ability to do is the salvage while the ZFS is still mounted online. We still prefer an offline salvage, but if you need to do an online, you can now. Okay, shorten SVC dump capture time. On the change dump command, we have a new parameter called max task non-dispatchable. That's a time that you specify that you want, and that means this is the amount of time that this kind of category can remain non-dispatchable so that I can continue on with my life here. Okay, so there's 3 categories. There's SRM critical, important, and normal. And you specify what you want for max, TNS, DSP, unchanged dump. That's all in the system commands book. Okay, moving along, cool stuff in Unix as well. In addition to the HFS to ZFS BPX WMIGF utility as well, I can reduce the size of a ZFS dynamically. This was the #1 customer requirement that we got from IBM. Out of, I don't know, 300 requirements, this was #1. So you have the ability to shrink online without it being unmounted. Cool. We have SMF. We can now use SMF in ZFS so that you can historically look at information. We can dynamically change more attributes. Here's something that I was talking about. If you guys ever listened to me and Martin Packer's podcast, we talked about this one, is the ability to unmount a version root automatically when it's not in use. Nice, very handy. What else do we have? Oh, and the idcams define. If you're going to define a VCM linear data set, and then you're going to format it as a ZFS, well, now we have the ability in idcams to say, you know, idcams define me a ZFS. And what does this mean? This means when I go to mount it, I could implicitly format it itself, so I didn't have to do a format specifically myself anymore. As long as I use the idcams define ZFS, I'm allowing the system to implicitly format, and then I don't have to do that step. So this is nice. 8-character TSO user IDs. All right, it's been a long time in coming. We've been working on this for a while. And so now you can have 8-character TSO user IDs. I'm going to warn you about this, however. We have been having 7 characters, since I was, in kindergarten, we still had 7 characters. When you move to 8 characters, there are a lot of impacts on other products and maybe your own applications and vendors and applications. This is not a small change to some people. So I would like to very much warn you that you do good investigation to make sure all your vendors and your application and even your IBM products are running at the correct level to support 8-character TSO user IDs before this, okay? We have even set up a fixcat, an SMP fixcat for the PTFs that we need, because the last time I saw the list on who was impacted just with IBM products, the count was 52 IBM products were impacted by this. Okay, as you can guess, you wanted it, we're giving it to you, but it had widespread impacts on many old amounts of code that had to change. All right, let's see here. SCRT is now a base component in the BCP. And you can also get it down off the web if you wanted as well. And we also have made it available to ISVs, so those ISVs that choose to use it, they can now have information produced in SCRT reports. PAX and TAR can have long file names and long link names. And another top user requirement, I don't know how much you guys would care about this, but it was a top user requirement, is that in SuperZap, we can prevent partial updates so that if you were doing a verify and a replicate, and that might have succeeded fine, and then you do the next verify and replicate, and that one failed, you might have had partial updates. So what we can do now in SuperZap is we can say, either all do it or don't do any of it. So do it all or do none. That way it will prevent partial updates. NFS server, we have Unicode support on mount system attributes. SMB, you can specify the started task name. And here is the other user mod that we got rid of in 2.3. However, I'm not sure that any of you guys were actually using this user mod in the first place. It's called the Gdg Bias User Mod. I don't know if anybody here using Gdg Bias. I only know one customer in the US that's doing it. But what this has is an advantage for all of you, because if you now want this behavior, we've made it official in JAS, job class attributes, and also within JCL as well. So what this is the ability to specify how you want absolute generations treated. Do you want them treated across the entire job, which is the traditional behavior that you probably thought was the only way it could happen? However, we now have the ability to say Gdg bias step, where it's associated at a step basis and not the entire job basis. This is the only enhancement that you will see in ZOS 2.3 for JES 3. Anybody here a GES 3 user? Okay, this is the only enhancement that you get in 2.3. Everything else was for GES 2. Okay, so we have the ability to specify this in the job class attribute and also within the JCL as well. So now there's something called Gdg Bias if you now want to start using it, because now you know that it's there. People used to have to put it on a user mod. Well, not people. One person I know used to have to put it in a user mod. But we got rid of that. BCPII, performance enhancements, also scaling enhancements so that we can make the return area larger and also perform a lot better. CEA, Common Event Adapter, critical for ZOSMF. One thing that they've added is that I can manage a TSO session from any system in the sysplex with continued vigilance for system access. Okay, so we'll still keep with that. And we need that for ZOSMF, but you can have it also for free if you want to use it yourself. VTOC update in SMF records. If we accidentally or somebody accidentally corrupts the VTOC, it could have been hard to figure out who it was. And so now what we'll have is a more better interface that we can actually do a validation of the VTOC, and we'll actually log more information so that if we had to get into a situation to figure out who had corrupted the VTOC, we would be able to better do that. We have the Ibm Function Registry for ZOS. It's just a chain of control blocks where we will be filling them up with information in the future. It's for use of IBM and ISVs. Customers can't put information there, but customers can pull it once we've got it all filled up. Health checker for ZOS. Now you wanted to be able to combine ParmLib members, right? You don't want to HZS PRM for every single system in the sysplex. Well, now we have the ability to do a do, when, do, and end, kind of like in the LoadXX, so that you can start combining ParmLib members between systems, which is nice. You don't have to have individual maintenance for individual ParmLib members. And what I really like is now I can just entirely syntax check the whole ParmLib member. This is really nice, something that they gave us without even a requirement. This is lovely because, as you might know, in the health check ParmLib member, some of those statements and some of those syntaxes get rather complicated. Alrighty, /global. /global is a brand new directory we're putting in the sysplex root. And we want to start using that for sysplex-wide configuration things. So there's a migration action that says in your sysplex root, if you have one, define a /global. And in the /global, you will think of it in a simplistic way. Think of what a /global is. You know how /var is an individual system configuration data set? Think of /global as a sysplex configuration location. So you could put things like your auto mount policy here that you need consistent across the sysplex. We want to start using it for ZOSMF, for the ZOSMF repository as well, so that if you take a system down, take the server down for ZOSMF, I can start the server on another system and have the configuration already at the top level in the global, the /global and the sysplex. Cool stuff, and we're starting to use this a lot more. InfoPrint Server has the ability to do automatic failover and supports 8-character TSO user IDs as well. 8 more fonts into ZOS, and hopes that you don't have to order fonts individually on Shop Z. I already mentioned about Liberty Embedded coming in just a packaging switch out, but we're hoping that will be more than that in the future, where you'll see less embeds of it. SDSF, there have been a ton of SPEs on SDSF. The biggest thing in 2.3 that I really like is that new main menu. Looks really different. Don't freak out. It's a one single line. You can page down on the primary menu. It's got a lot of new options and a lot of good stuff. You can get a lot of it in other ways, but I really like it that I can access it in SDSF. All right, I am very much running out of time. So we're now at the networking and security and application deployment. So if you guys really need to leave, that's fine, but I'm going to keep going here. Okay, if you guys need to leave, I'm totally fine with that. In the networking area, we have Configuration Assistant within ZOSMF, and now that Configuration Assistant can actually extract out what your current TCP IP profile is and show it to you in ZOSMF Configuration Assistant. That's really cool. Also, we've updated ATTLS to support the latest SSL security features. There is increased capacity in the EZBD VIPA CF structure so that we can go up to 16,384, which gives you simultaneous more IPsec tunnels in a sysplex. port and port range statement. For the job name, we have wildcard support. And also, finally, good thing, we have the long system symbol support. When we came out with long system symbols in ZOS 2.2, COM server couldn't handle it yet, but they are able to do it now in 2.3. So long system symbol support in 2.3 is a good thing to use for COM server. If you wanted to start VTAM without the internal trace options, you can do that. For security, field level access checking support in order to help with usability on this so that you don't have to grant administrator access as often. PKI is going to use that Liberty Embedded that I talked about, how we packaged it outside of ZOSMF into Liberty for the base. PKI is now going to use that, as well as ZOSMF and as well as KC, Knowledge Center for Z. NJE security. In JES-XCF, which is the base component, which affects both JES2 and JES3, we have a new health check in order to help determine what you might want to have for NJE security. Multi-factor authentication, now that's been out for a while and enhanced with various features over time. We've rolled that into the ZOS 2.3 base. I'm really happy about this one. This is the SAF security deployment descriptor. One of the hardest things in ZOSMF is getting all the security work done correctly. It's rather hard, and if you don't do it exactly right, ZOSMF will not come up. So, not to say that this is using this initially, but this is a good example of something that we could have used it for, is that we will have the ability in a security product agnostic way to provide XML into a deployment descriptor. And then whatever security product you're using, it will be able to consume that deployment descriptor and convert it into its own product commands. And you can run them and even look at the return codes and messages that come back from it. So IBM will support this with RACF. And if you have one of the other two security products, I don't speak about them. So you can ask that company what they are doing for that. But we have worked with them heavily to make sure that we're all in this boat together and that the SAF deployment descriptor is okay for all of us. We have stack guards for program stacks and LE so that we can help protect applications against malicious exploitation in the stack. Network authentication service, Kerberos, doesn't need to be UID 0 anymore. That's good. The LDAP server has a new health check to suggest when you need to do a DB2 reorg or a run stats. A little item here, and this was another user requirement that we had, is that we would not necessarily have consistent mapping for the username when a file was owned by UID 0. So sometimes you get one username, and then other times you get another username. And so what we said is we're going to use this existing statement, super user, with a username here, and this is in BPX PRM. We're going to now consistently report back what this user ID is as the owner of files when the owner of the file is a UID 0. I could put Walle here, right? And so every time a UID 0 owned a file, I could report it back as Walle if I wanted, right? So it's got to be in BPX PRM with this existing statement. It has to be a valid user ID there. We have more granularity for Unix SMF. Ability to see SMF records so that certain users can actually, if you allow them to, look at certain record types for Unix if you'd like as well. And we'll also support subtypes as well. So certain users would be able to see some, but not others. Okay, for application development, this is a really cool function, and your users might just go and find it in the JCL book and start using it, okay? So the reason why I say that is because easy for users to use, harder for us ZOS people to set up. All right, so here it is. I can say in JCL job, I can say notify some email, right, when the return code is not 0. Now, if users go and find this in JCL jobs, they might just want to do it, or they hear about that it's a cool thing to do and they could set it up. Oh, but now the work comes to us to make sure that works, right? Okay, first of all, it requires ZOSMF services. And the reason is because this was implemented with REST APIs. And who is our REST server in ZOS? It's ZOSMF. Okay, so JES2 has written against REST APIs to do this, and it needs to be served up by a server, which is ZOSMF. Okay, it needs to be in the same auto start group, and I'll tell you what an auto start group is after lunch. And it also requires a lot of security setup as well. So just having ZOSMF up is not enough work. You also have to do a lot of security setup as well. Okay, but it is rather cool, and it is something that you might want to set up as soon as you have ZOSMF up and running, and it's only in ZOS 2.3 for the notify statement in there. Is that only for JES 2? Absolutely. Only had one thing for JES 3, and that was the Gdg bias. That was it. End of story. That one's easy. I could do that one in 30 seconds. It's the 45 minutes I have problems on the other stuff for. Yeah, but this is only JES 2. It's called the Email Delivery Service, JES 2 Email Delivery Service. Web Enablement Toolkit can support Rex. It's really cool. I can write a program in Rex, and I can go out into the real world and connect with a server out there, and I can pull information in. It's really cool. There's a sample program that if you want to get the weather at any airport in the world, we'll show you a sample program how to do that. Let's see what else we have here. The ISPF can generate extended statistics for PDS members when it's needed. I'm trying to think. Now, in ZOS 2.2, we had JES 2 job groups. I don't know if you've played around with them. I've played around with them for a little bit. They're kind of cool. And what we have is enhancements to those job groups that came in 2.2 for notification, for output descriptors, and being able to do more flexibility within the job scheduling. JES 2 JCL delimiters are be able to move from the 2 characters that they've been forever up to all the way 18. And we've got 2 new JCL symbols. We got one for the current job name and also one for the current job number as well. Okay, let me see. Oh, almost done here. So we have the next one, and I want to make sure I talk about this one because I want to be really clear with the technical audience like you guys are what we mean by this. So we have on IBM SDK for Java 8, SR5, they're really touting something in marketing called pause-less garbage collection. Okay, now this is really careful because when people are just talking, they're talking about pauseless garbage collection. Well, you think with pause-less, that would mean it's no pauses, right? It's not, that's not how it is. It's fewer pauses. That's where I wish it would have been said differently. So there are fewer pauses for garbage collection. If you heard about pauseless, no pauses, that's not accurate. It's fewer pauses to do garbage collection. And we're going to exploit this with using that guarded storage facility that we had in Z14 enhancements, and that was surfaced up through the operating system itself. And it's also going to have cryptography performances for the enhancements for the true random number generator. Okay, so when you hear, first of all, pause less, it's not no pauses, it's fewer pauses. So think about that, okay? I wish that marketing people would say this slightly differently, but it's fewer pauses for garbage collection. Okay, so just be real careful about that one. And there's a whole bunch of XL, C, C++ enhancements that you'll see coming in the new level. And of course, they have a new ARC level and a new tune level as well. Meaning that once we move to the new higher level where the EC12, BC12 is our minimum, they're also going to move the default up to ARC level and tune level 10. Question?
No.
Oh.
Go back to your previous screen.
Sure.
People who aren't here, who aren't going to watch the video,
Yes.
you've got a typo. Quite an
I got a typo on here for those on the video.
pauseless is it garbage?
Oh, you know what? I saw that.
And I was just confused me.
Yeah, sorry. It's garbage. I'm sorry. Yes, for everybody on the screen and in the proceedings, I think, oh my gosh, I think it uploaded it like that way. The garage here means garbage, yeah. I don't store garbage in my garage, but yeah. I'm very sorry about that. You are absolutely right, yes. This is fewer pauses for garbage collection, not garage. Oh my gosh. Alrighty. So I think that is the last slide. We have statements to directions in the handouts, and they go on for pages and pages. So you can go look at them if you want, but they're just pulled out of the RFAs. So please remember to do your session evaluation. This is BA, just like the airline.
It's BC.
Oh, it's BC? Oh, this is wrong. See, I think I was BC when I had an hour. And now they give me 45 minutes and I'm not BA. Okay. I'm BC. Okay, BC. Thank you.